This download is the only extract the BBC has of this edition of Desert Island Discs. The presenter was Roy Plumley.
Are you a Londoner?
Yes, I was born in London.
Educated at Malvern College, I see.
Yes, my father was there, and then he was killed in what was then Palestine in the riots, and he was a barrister. And I was brought up, because he'd been a Mason, the Masons very kindly educated me at Malvern College, which is very generous of them.
Why did you want to be an actor? How did that come into your system?
Well, when I left school, I didn't know, I was very unhappy at school and was sent to a psychoanalyst, as a matter of fact, to try and sort my head out. And she suggested that some therapeutic, this is how my career started, that a good therapy would be the stage, you see.
So how did you set about it?
Well, then I applied to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art and managed to get in, but I only lasted one term, because they wrote to my mother and said that, much as we like the little fellow, he's wasting your money and our time. Take him away. So that was it.
This was just before the war?
Yes. And then I went into the Air Force, and my mother said, well, there you are, dear. You see, you've tried, and it hasn't worked. Now you can get on with something else.
Yes. And in the RAF, you flew in bombers?
I was in Cheshire Squadron, 76 Squadron.
Yes.
And I was shot down in September 1942 over Denmark.
You came down in the sea, did you not?
Yes, Flensburg. We hit at Flensburg, flying in Halifax at 1,000 feet, and landed near Sylt, which is now a nudist colony. It wasn't then.
Yes.
And
were you picked up fairly soon?
Well, we got into the rubber dinghy, which first didn't come out, but finally we managed to get it out. And some of the crew suggested paddling for 400 miles to Norway. And I regret to say, I said, well, why don't we all just sort of get ashore and have something warm to eat? It wasn't very bold and brave, but at least we're alive today.
Yes. And you had, 3 years in a prison camp. How did you occupy your time in the camp? Were there any theatricals?
There were theatricals. They built a theatre, and I applied for a part, and I was given an understudy.
That's a bit rough.
Bit rough.
When you returned to London, when you were repatriated, you still hadn't made your professional debut in the theatre then?
No, I went to see Oliver Gordon at Windsor, who was running Windsor then, and he hadn't got any room for me, and but he sent a letter to the Amersham Repertory Company, which Carol Jenner was running. And because I got what they call compassionate exit from the Air Force, having been in the bag for something, they either rehabilitate you or you can elect to go out immediately, which I did. So I got out sort of a month or two, I suppose, before some of the other boys. Quite a few jobs around, and I managed to get into this repertory theatre, which I played the old man and the drunkard, and then one other part. And then almost instantly Windsor came along and asked me to go there. I did 2 plays at Windsor, and then Tennant took me in the Guinea Pig at the Criterion, where it went for a year and a half.
So you were in the West End pretty quickly?
I was in the West End 5 weeks after I started.
Splendid. Now, you had a year and a half run in the Guinea Pig. You were playing leading parts already in the West End, and quite soon you had the distinction of being in Bernard Shaw's last play.
Yes, but after the Guinea Pig, I'd done a lot of work at various places like Kew Theatre and that sort of thing, and radio, Howard Rose, and I was chosen to play this leading part in Buoyant Billions, which was the last play Shaw wrote, and went down with Esme Percy, who was directing it, to A at St. Lawrence, and was sort of directed by Shaw, who was then 96 or something. Yes. It was about a year before he died.
He had all the makings of a first-rate actor, I believe.
Oh, yes, unbelievable. I was quite unaware how broad his Irish accent was. It was really quite extreme.
And after Shaw's Buoyant Billions, you appeared in plays by Christopher Fry and Ennui.
Yes, Olivier came to see me in Buoyant Billions and asked me to play his son in Venus Observed, which was his first venture as a manager after his triumphant season at the New. And I did that. And one day in the wings, he said, because this time Schofield was playing the twins in Ring Round the Moon, he said, how would you like to go to New York and play the twins in Ring Round the Moon? And then went on, and let's drop the subject for 2 days. You can imagine. And he just, Gilbert Miller had said, Larry, who should I take to New York for the juvenile? And Larry said, why don't you take Dedham? Why don't you take my juvenile? And just like that, when the great ones nod, your whole career has changed.
Yes.
And I went to New York and played that.
It didn't do terribly well in New York.
We did
when
5 months, I think.
Did it?
I managed to get the Donaldson Award out of it, which was quite a help.
Splendid. And you appeared in I think, 2 of T.S. Eliot's plays, didn't you?
They came straight back after that to do the Christopher Fry's Sleep of Prisoners in St. Thomas's Church. And then the Confidential Clerk in the Lyric Theatre with Margaret Leighton.
You were much in demand for films. You were usually under contract to somebody.
Yes, David Lean saw me in a play at the Criterion called Third Person and asked me to play the son in The Sound Barrier with Ralph Richardson. And Lean, that's just an example of what I was saying. Lean and Corder were having lunch at the Savoy one day, surrounded by aides sitting with pads and shorthand things all at the ready. And Corder said, "Tell me, how's this boy coming on? Is he any good?" And Lean said, "Yes, I think he is quite good. I think you should give him a contract." And Corder, according to an eyewitness, inclined his head half an inch to the left and said, "Give him a contract." And someone just scribbled it down. And I was under contract for £5,000 a year, I think it was, which then was a great deal of money, for 14 years.
A nice, steady job, very handy.
It was an incredible job. My agent at the time was Dennis Van Taal, who fixed a quite an outrageous contract for me. Wonderful, all the clauses on my side. And the following week, he left the agency and he took the job of the person he'd done the contract with. So he was in the position of trying to argue himself out of a contract that he'd fixed the week before.
Well, that showed it. You were backwards and forwards to New York quite a lot.
Yes, shortly after my New York theatre time, the kitchen sink period came in with Osborne and Kenneth Haig and Look Back in Anger and that sort of thing. And I was very strictly a tennis anyone, you know. I wasn't... kitchen sink wasn't my thing at all. And I couldn't find anything. And so I used to just pay my way up to New York and announce my arrival, really. And so,
would it be fair to say that for a number of years you were better known in the States than you were here?
Yes, I did a great many television shows. I remember I went to, I think, twice a month to New York to do television shows. And I remember coming from the airport down 3rd Avenue once, and the taxi stopped at the lights, and the laundryman rushed out and said, "Hey, you left your shirts. Where you been, out of town?" And I really felt that, you know, I was at home.
Yeah.
And I was married. My wife's American, Susan, and both my children were born on the road, actually. One in New York and the other in San Francisco.
In the same basket.
In the same basket, yes.
You must have played in innumerable films by now, some here, some in America. Which ones do you like to remember in particular?
Station 6 Sahara with Ian Bannon, and from that I got my breakthrough in films, which was Nothing But the Best with Alan Bates, and then Alfie and all those other things.
Some nice exotic locations?
Marvellous locations. Samoa in Pattern of Islands, Morocco in Station 6 Sahara.
Any films recently?
Yes, I did recently one in Canada about 6 months ago in Montreal called Duddy Kravitz, which has had rave reviews and is extremely successful. I have really a cameo in it, but it's a great deal of fun. And I've just done the new Percy one.
And all the time a great deal of television, either here or there.
I haven't done a lot of television lately because I had done so much last year with the Sextet being redone again, and a lot of plays, that one about the cameraman who was out of work, and you know, that I'd really rather... I was offered a series the other day and I didn't do it, but I think you can be terribly overexposed. I've been always very careful in my career to do theatre. Takes you out of the television eye, and the people are glad to see you back again. I mean, if you're on every week... I mean, one week last year I was on, I think, 5 times a week in different things. Yes. Reruns of films and plays and things.
Now, you've always been a very busy actor. Right from the start you've played leading roles in first-rate productions, but somehow you never stayed in one place long enough to be recognised as a top-ranking star. Does that worry you?
It doesn't worry me because where I am at the moment, I know that I could be, if I wished to be, a top-ranking star because I have the power and the technique, I think, to take on anyone. And the only thing that has stopped me from being a top-ranking star is my desire to be, which I've never wanted. And it's only recently have I achieved the weight to, if I want to be. I mean, I could go to Stratford and play Prospero. I could, I could have taken a television series and built myself up and, and done all sorts of things. But I don't. I like an anonymity, and I like, sort of in a sense, being an amateur.
You have then, to an extent, planned your career.
Yes, I love my freedom, and I hate the demands that are made on you if you really... I mean, the number of jobs, actually, that I turned down is incredible. If I took them all and pushed and was seen in the right places and did all that nonsense, I suppose one could, become a top ranker. I think the price is too high, quite honestly.